The morning sun cast long shadows across the wheat fields of Haven Colony as 8-year-old Thomas played with his robotic companion, Max. The silver-plated robot hovered slightly above the golden stalks, projecting holographic butterflies that Thomas tried to catch in his small hands. His laughter echoed across the field, bringing smiles to the faces of nearby farmers tending their crops. Thomas's father had given him Max on his last birthday, programming it to both entertain and protect. The robot had become Thomas's best friend, especially since there weren't many children his age in this part of the colony. They spent their days exploring the edges of the settlement, collecting interesting rocks, and making up stories about space adventures. That morning started like any other on Haven. The colony's atmospheric shields created a perfect blue sky overhead, while the planet's twin moons hung faintly visible in the daylight. Workers moved between the pristine white buildings of the settlement, and transport vehicles hummed quietly along the magnetic roads. Governor James Wright sat in his office, reviewing the morning reports when the proximity alerts began blaring. He rushed to the window, his heart sinking as he saw 3 Imperial warships dropping out of hyperspace, their dark hulls blocking out the sunlight as they descended toward the colony. The Empire rarely visited outer colonies like Haven. Their massive ships, shaped like arrowheads, were not a welcome sight. Wright immediately activated the emergency protocols, sending a subtle distress signal to Earth while preparing to receive the uninvited guests. "Attention Haven Colony," a cold voice boomed through the settlement's communication system. "This is Commander Reed of the Imperial Fleet. We are conducting a routine inspection. Maintain your current activities. Any attempt to resist will be met with immediate response." In the wheat field, Max detected the Imperial ships and activated its protection protocols. The robot's cheerful blue lights turned amber as it moved closer to Thomas, who watched the massive ships with wonder rather than fear. He had never seen Imperial vessels up close before. "Look, Max." Thomas pointed at the ships, pulling his favorite toy from his pocket, a model spacecraft his mother had brought him from Earth. He held it up, making whooshing sounds as he pretended to fly it alongside the real ships overhead. The Imperial inspection team landed near the colony center, their armored boots clicking against the pavement as they marched toward the administrative building. Governor Wright met them at the entrance, maintaining a calm exterior despite his racing heart. "Welcome to Haven," Wright said, bowing slightly. "We are honored by your presence." Commander Reed, towering in his black armor, barely acknowledged the greeting. "We receive reports of unauthorized technology development in this sector. You will submit to an immediate inspection." As they spoke, a squad of Imperial soldiers spread out through the colony. Their heavy weapons and scanning devices created an atmosphere of tension that spread through the settlement like a dark cloud. One soldier, moving along the edge of the wheat field, spotted movement. Through his helmet's display, he saw Thomas and Max. The boy's toy spacecraft, glinting in the sunlight, registered on his tactical display as an unknown device. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The soldier raised his weapon. Max's sensors detected the threat instantly, moving to shield Thomas. Governor Wright, seeing the situation from the colony's security feeds, shouted into his communicator. But it was too late. A single plasma bolt cut through the morning air. Max attempted to generate a protection field, but its civilian-grade shields couldn't stop military weapons. The bolt passed through the robot and struck Thomas in the chest. He fell backward into the wheat, the toy spacecraft tumbling from his lifeless fingers. The colony's integrated surveillance system, designed to record everything for safety purposes, captured it all. Within seconds, the footage began transmitting across human space. The death of an innocent child, killed for playing with a toy, broadcast to every human colony, ship, and station. In that moment, as Thomas's body lay in the golden wheat field under Haven's perfect blue sky, the galaxy changed forever. The Empire had just made the biggest mistake in its 1,000-year history. They had given humanity something it had never truly had before, a reason to unite in rage. The video of Thomas's death reached Earth within minutes, In homes, offices, and public spaces, people watched in horror as the scene played out again and again. The boy's toy spacecraft, clearly visible in the footage, became a symbol that sparked humanity's rage. Admiral Helen Stone stood motionless in the United Defense Council's command center, her hands gripping the steel railing until her knuckles turned white. On the massive screen before her, Thomas's final moments played in a loop. She saw herself and his parents. 15 years ago, she had lost her own son in a mining accident caused by Imperial negligence. "Turn it off," she ordered, her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest. The screen went dark, leaving the room in heavy silence. Around her, 30 of Earth's highest-ranking military leaders sat watching, waiting. "The Empire has sent a message," Stone announced, touching a control panel. A new image appeared on the screen. An official Imperial document offering 50 billion credits as compensation for the unfortunate incident. General Peters, a veteran of border skirmishes with the Empire, stood up. "They think they can buy their way out of this, like they always have." "No," Stone replied, "not this time." She pressed another button, revealing a hidden screen behind the main display. It showed hundreds of warships hidden in underground bases and asteroid facilities across human space. For decades, Earth had been preparing in secret, building a fleet that could match the Empire's strength. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Few knew the full extent of humanity's hidden military power. Stone had helped create this secret force, knowing that one day humanity would need it. "We have 10,000 ships ready to launch," she continued. "Our quantum communications can't be blocked. Our weapons use technology the Empire has never seen. We are ready." In orbit above Earth, massive doors hidden within mountains and under oceans began to open. Ships that had never seen sunlight rose from their hiding places. Their dark hulls, covered in stealth material, absorbed radar and light, making them nearly invisible to Imperial sensors. The Empire's diplomats, watching from their embassy in New Washington, felt their first touch of fear as they saw the scale of Earth's deception. They had believed humans were simple colonists, farmers, and miners. They were wrong. Admiral Stone walked to the center of the command room. "The Empire believes they can kill our children and buy peace with credits. They believe we are weak. They believe we will bow our heads and accept their apology." She paused, looking at each council member in turn. They are about to learn how wrong they are. On her command, encrypted messages spread across human space. Hidden weapons platforms activated. Sleeping defense systems woke up. Every human colony, even the smallest mining outpost, revealed military equipment that had been disguised as civilian infrastructure. The Empire's observers reported strange readings they couldn't explain. Their sensors showed massive energy signatures appearing from nowhere. Their communications began to fail as human quantum networks took control of local space. In Haven Colony, where Thomas's body still lay in the wheat field, the Imperial soldiers found themselves surrounded by defense turrets that rose from the ground. The farmers and workers they had dismissed as simple colonists now stood holding advanced weapons, their eyes hard with purpose. Admiral Stone sent humanity's response to the Empire's offer of compensation. 3 words. No terms. War. She turned to her staff, her voice carrying the weight of command. "Launch Operation Thunderstrike. All units, execute their assigned targets. Show them what happens when they harm our children." Across human space, thousands of ships lifted off. In the darkness between the stars, humanity's hidden fleet moved into attack positions. The Empire was about to learn that they hadn't been watching a primitive species slowly develop. They had been watching humanity prepare for this very day. The war for vengeance had begun. The Empire's supply station in the Rigel sector never saw the attack coming. One moment, their sensors showed empty space. The next, 50 human warships appeared less than 1,000 kilometers away, their stealth systems dropping like dark cloaks. Major Robert Miller stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Thunder. His team had trained for this moment for 5 years. They knew every detail of Imperial station design, every weakness in their shields, every gap in their defenses. All ships, weapons free, Miller ordered. Remember Haven. The human fleet opened fire with their new quantum cannons. The Imperial station's shields, designed to stop normal weapons, might as well have been paper. The energy beams passed through them like they weren't there, cutting precise lines through the station's outer rings. No alarms had even sounded when the second wave of human ships hit 3 more supply stations in nearby systems. The Empire's mighty fleet, spread across 1,000 worlds, suddenly found itself cut off from fuel and ammunition. On her flagship above Earth, Admiral Stone watched the tactical display as green lights flashed, marking successful strikes. Phase 2, she commanded. Start the hunt. Imperial warships, trying to respond to the attacks, found themselves being picked off by enemies they couldn't detect. Human vessels, using technology developed in secret underground labs, could track Imperial ships through hyperspace itself. There was nowhere left to hide. The Empire's most advanced warship, the Dominion, dropped out of hyperspace to defend a fuel depot. Captain Miller and his team were waiting. The Thunder's special forces, wearing powered armor that made them look like steel giants, cut through the Dominion's hull using plasma torches that burned hotter than stars. Miller led the boarding team himself. Their helmet displays showed them exactly where to go, guiding them through the Imperial ship's corridors. The Empire's soldiers, trained to fight enemies they could see coming, fell before invisible attackers. Human stealth suits bent light around them, making them appear as nothing more than shadows. In the Dominion's control room, Miller found what they really came for: the command codes. Every Imperial ship needed these codes to operate. With them, humanity could shut down half the Imperial fleet with a single signal. Command, this is Miller, he reported, standing over the bodies of Imperial officers who had fought to their last breath. We have the package. Moving to Phase 3. Admiral Stone allowed herself a small smile as she received the message. The Empire was learning an expensive lesson. They hadn't been watching a developing civilization. They had been watching humanity build the perfect trap, waiting for the day they would need it. The Empire's response ships arrived in waves, only to find their weapons couldn't lock onto the human vessels. Their shields couldn't stop the quantum weapons. Their computers couldn't fight off human cyber attacks that turned their own systems against them. In the first 6 hours of Operation Thunderstrike, 30 Imperial warships were destroyed. 40 more were captured. Supply lines that had kept the Empire's military running for centuries were cut in a single day. But it was what Miller found in the Dominion's computers that changed everything. Hidden in encrypted files were messages between Imperial commanders, revealing cracks in the Empire's perfect facade. Many of their subject worlds hated their rulers. Some had been waiting centuries for a chance to break free. Admiral Stone read Miller's report with growing interest. Send copies of these files to all our intelligence units, she ordered. The Empire isn't as united as they want us to think. We can use that. As human ships continued their advance, unstoppable and unseen, the Empire's leaders began to realize the truth. They hadn't started a war with a weaker species. They had awakened a giant that had been preparing for this moment for generations. And this was only the beginning. The Imperial Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 50 alien species shouted at each other across the Grand Hall. The Empire's oldest alliance was breaking apart like a sheet of glass hit by a hammer. You told us the humans were primitive, shouted the delegate from the mining worlds. His scaled skin had turned dark blue with anger. You said they had no real weapons. High Commander Reed, the same officer whose troops had killed Thomas, stood silent as accusations flew around him. The classified files stolen from the Dominion were now playing on every screen in Imperial space. They showed how the Empire's leadership had lied to their own people for years. On her flagship, Admiral Stone watched the Imperial Council's chaos through hacked security feeds. Her intelligence chief, a quiet woman named Lisa Wright, pointed to different faces in the crowd. "These 10 systems want to break away," Wright said, marking them on a star map. "They've already sent us secret messages offering support. These others are waiting to see who wins. And these," she pointed to a cluster of red dots, "these are the ones we need to worry about. They're still loyal to the Empire." Stone nodded, studying the map. In just 2 weeks, humanity had done more damage to the Empire than anyone had in 1,000 years. Not through weapons alone, but by showing the Empire's subjects the truth. Meanwhile, Major Miller and his team were putting the stolen command codes to good use. Imperial ships across 50 systems suddenly found themselves locked out of their own weapons. Some crews surrendered. Others tried to fight using manual controls. But that was like trying to fight a war with sticks against guns. The Empire's ruling council split into 3 groups. The first wanted to surrender to Earth immediately. The second wanted to keep fighting, thinking they could still win. The third group, led by High Commander Reed, wanted to use the Empire's secret weapons, planet-killing bombs that could destroy whole worlds. But Reed had a problem. The command code stolen by Miller meant he couldn't access these weapons. When he tried, he found human computer viruses waiting for him. Each virus showed the same image: Thomas's toy spacecraft, turning slowly against a background of stars. On a dozen Imperial worlds, people began to rise up against their rulers. They had watched the video of Thomas's death. They had seen how the Empire treated those it thought were weak. Now they sought a chance to be free. Stone launched the next phase of her plan. Protocol Omega. Human ships appeared in the home systems of Imperial leaders, targeting their private estates and hidden bunkers. The message was clear. There was nowhere in the galaxy they could hide. The Empire's oldest and strongest ally, the Trade Federation, announced it would stay neutral in the war. Other allies followed, not wanting to share the Empire's fate. In meeting halls across the galaxy, Imperial officials found themselves sitting alone at tables where once 50 species had gathered to obey their commands. Back on Earth, the Defense Council received more messages every hour. Some were from Imperial worlds asking for protection. Others were from resistance groups offering to help fight their former masters. A few were from Imperial commanders wanting to surrender. "The Empire is tearing itself apart," Wright told Stone, showing her the latest reports. "Their own people are turning against them. But there's something else." She paused, looking troubled. "We've found evidence that Thomas's death wasn't an accident. The Empire planned it. They wanted an excuse to take control of Earth before we got too strong." Stone's face hardened as she read the proof. The Empire hadn't just killed an innocent child. They had done it on purpose, thinking it would make humanity bow down in fear. Instead, they had signed their own death warrant. The laboratory deep beneath the Pacific Ocean was humanity's most closely guarded secret. Here, in chambers protected by miles of water and rock, scientists had developed something that would change the nature of warfare forever. Admiral Stone walked through the steel corridors, her footsteps echoing. The lab's head scientist, Dr. Alan Ross, led her to a room filled with glowing pods. Inside each pod floated what looked like sleeping people, but they weren't really sleeping. "The consciousness transfer system is ready," Dr. Ross said, touching one of the pods. "We can move a human mind into any of our combat robots in less than 5 seconds. Death means nothing to these soldiers. They just wake up in a new body and keep fighting." Stone looked at the pods with mixed feelings. This technology was both wonderful and terrible. They had developed it trying to save people with deadly injuries. Now they would use it to create unstoppable soldiers. Above the lab, the first wave of special combat robots was being loaded onto ships. They looked human-sized, perfect for fighting in space stations and ships. Each one could hold a human consciousness, turning brave volunteers into immortal warriors. The Empire didn't know what hit them when the first attack came. Human soldiers charged straight into heavy fire, their metal bodies shrugging off wounds that would kill normal troops. When a robot body was destroyed, the soldier's mind simply transferred to a new one and rejoined the fight. Imperial troops began to break. How could they fight an enemy that couldn't die? Some threw down their weapons and ran. Others surrendered, their faith in Imperial power shattered by these unkillable human warriors. But Dr. Ross had an even bigger surprise ready. In a special pod, protected by extra security, they had preserved Thomas's consciousness. The boy's mind had been saved by his robot companion, Max, in the seconds before his death, a standard safety feature in all human AI companions. Project Legacy is ready, Ross told Stone. We can broadcast Thomas's memories to every computer system in Imperial space. Let them see through his eyes. Let them feel what he felt. Let them understand what they did to an innocent child. Stone thought carefully before giving the order. This wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about making sure such a thing never happened again. She pressed her hand against the scanner, authorizing Project Legacy. The Empire tried to fight back with biological weapons, releasing engineered viruses against human worlds. But they didn't know that consciousness transfer technology made such weapons useless. Humans could simply move their minds to new, uninfected bodies. The Imperial attacks backfired horribly. Their biological weapons spread to their own worlds, forcing them to beg Earth for help. Stone made them surrender 3 star systems in exchange for the cure. Thomas's memories spread through the Imperial network like a gentle wave. Aliens across the galaxy experienced his last moments, his joy playing in the wheat field, his wonder at seeing the Imperial ships, his confusion and fear at the end. Many Imperial citizens who saw these memories joined the human side, disgusted by their leaders' actions. The Empire's running out of options, Major Miller reported from his command ship. His consciousness had transferred bodies 12 times already, making him one of the most experienced immortal soldiers. They're pulling back to their core worlds. Their armies are deserting. Their people are rebelling. Stone stood in her command center, watching the strategic display. Human forces pushed toward the Imperial capital from all directions. The Empire's mighty fleets were scattered. Their strongest allies had abandoned them. Their own people were turning against them. Send the message to all ships, she ordered. Begin the final advance. We're going to the heart of the Empire itself. The Empire was about to learn that they hadn't just made humanity angry. They had forced humans to reveal their greatest technological achievements, things they had hoped to keep peaceful. Now these gifts would become weapons, and the Empire would fall. The Imperial capital world hung in space like a red jewel. 3 rings of defense stations circled it, bristling with weapons. Thousands of warships formed a wall of steel around the planet. This was the Empire's last stand. Admiral Stone stood on her flagship's bridge, watching the largest human fleet ever assembled drop out of stealth mode. 10,000 ships appeared around the capital system, their quantum weapons ready. The Empire's sensors lit up with warnings as their worst nightmare became real. They're sending a message, her communications officer reported. The High Command wants to negotiate. Stone thought of Thomas, of his toy spacecraft, of all the other innocent lives the Empire had taken over the centuries. No negotiations, she replied. Tell all ships to begin the attack. The battle that followed would be remembered for centuries. Human ships, their immortal crews fighting without fear, smashed through the Imperial defenses like a hammer through glass. Consciousness-transferred soldiers transported directly onto Imperial stations, fighting their way to control rooms and turning the station's guns against their own fleet. Major Miller led the ground assault on the capital itself. His consciousness jumped from body to body as he pushed forward, each transfer making him faster and smarter as he learned from each death. The Imperial Palace's defenses, designed to stop normal armies, meant nothing to soldiers who couldn't die. In the palace's deep bunker, Miller's team found the truth. They discovered files going back hundreds of years, showing how the Empire had watched humanity grow. The Imperial leaders had seen humans build their first starships, establish their first colonies, develop their technology. They had seen humanity's potential for greatness, and it had terrified them. The Empire hadn't killed Thomas by accident. They had planned to use his death to start a war while they thought humans were still weak. They had expected Earth to bow down in fear after losing a colony. Instead, they had awakened humanity's full power. Admiral Stone transported down to the palace herself once it was secured. In the Grand Throne Room, she found the Imperial High Commander waiting. He hadn't tried to run. "You could have been our friends," Stone told him. "We would have shared our technology. We would have helped you build a better galaxy. Instead, you chose to rule through fear. We saw what humanity would become," the High Commander replied. "We saw that you would surpass us. Better to strike first, we thought. Better to keep you down." He laughed bitterly. "We were wrong." Outside the palace, the Empire's subject species were rising up. Inspired by Earth's victory, they threw off their chains. Imperial governors found themselves surrounded by their own people, demanding freedom. The Empire's 1,000-year reign was ending not just from human attacks, but from the courage humans had given others. Stone opened a channel to all human ships. "The palace is secured. The High Command is in custody. But we're not here for revenge anymore." She looked at the High Commander. "We're here to build something better." She sent out another signal, this one to every world in Imperial space. The message showed Thomas playing in the wheat field, but now it showed something more. It showed the future humanity had been building. Clean energy technology, medical advances, faster-than-light drives that didn't damage space. Things the Empire could have shared in if they had chosen friendship instead of fear. To all worlds of the former Empire, Stone announced, "Earth offers you a choice. You can join us in building a new future, or you can choose your own path. The Empire's time of control is over. The time of freedom has begun." One by one, the Imperial worlds responded, not with surrender, but with hope. They had seen humanity's power, but more importantly, they had seen humanity's mercy. Where the Empire would have destroyed its enemies completely, Earth offered them a chance to change. The war was ending. The harder task of building peace was about to begin. 5 years after the fall of the Empire, Haven Colony had changed. The wheat fields where Thomas once played now surrounded a beautiful memorial garden. Children from 100 different species ran through the paths, their laughter mixing with the sound of wind in the golden stalks. Admiral Stone, now retired, walked through the garden with Thomas's parents. They stopped at the center, where a life-sized hologram showed their son playing with his robot companion Max. The toy spacecraft that had started everything was displayed in a crystal case beneath the hologram. "The Haven Accords have been signed by every known civilization," Stone told them. "No child of any species will ever be harmed in war again. Thomas's law is now the foundation of galactic peace." In orbit above Haven, ships from former Imperial worlds arrived for the 5-year celebration. They passed under an honor guard of human vessels, their crews including both organic beings and consciousness-transferred soldiers who had chosen to keep serving in mechanical bodies. Major Miller, commanding the honor guard from his flagship, watched the arrivals with satisfaction. After the war, he had helped many former Imperial worlds build their own defense forces, not to fight, but to protect. Every ship that passed carried the new symbol of the Protected Systems Alliance, a child spacecraft among the stars. The Empire's former capital had become the headquarters of the Alliance. In the rebuilt palace, now a center of learning, Dr. Ross and his team taught consciousness transfer technology to doctors from 1,000 worlds. What had been a weapon of war was now saving lives across the galaxy. "Look," Miller said to his crew, pointing at their sensors. A ship from the farthest reaches of known space was arriving. It carried representatives of a newly discovered civilization, coming to join the Alliance. They had seen how Earth treated its former enemies and wanted to be part of this new age. Down in the memorial garden, Thomas's mother touched the crystal case holding his toy spacecraft. "He would have loved to see this," she said softly. "All these different beings, all these children playing together." Stone nodded. "He sees it," she replied. Through the quantum network, Thomas's consciousness still exists. He doesn't interfere or talk to us. He just watches the children play, protecting them in his own way. The former High Commander of the Empire had asked to attend the celebration from his rehabilitation center. His request was granted. He stood with other former Imperial leaders, watching alien children play with human kids in the garden. "We were wrong about them," he told his companions. "We thought their strength would make them cruel, like us. Instead, it made them kind. They could have destroyed us all, but they chose to help us change." In schools across Alliance space, children learned about the war. But they didn't learn about hatred or revenge. They learned about Thomas, about how his death had led not to endless fighting, but to the greatest peace the galaxy had ever known. The consciousness transfer technology that had made human soldiers immortal was now used to preserve the wisdom of the dying. The quantum weapons that had won the war were converted to power generators, providing free energy to poor worlds. Everything humanity had created for war now served peace. As night fell on Haven, the memorial garden lit up with soft lights. The hologram of Thomas played on, his laughter echoing across the wheat fields. Above, the stars shone down on a changed galaxy. The empire that had ruled through fear was gone. In its place was something new, an alliance of equals, bound together by the promise to protect all children, to choose peace over power, to build rather than destroy. Thomas's toy spacecraft still spun slowly in its crystal case, catching the starlight. It was no longer a symbol of tragedy, but a reminder of the day humanity proved its greatest strength wasn't in its weapons or technology. It was in its ability to turn grief into hope, war into peace, and enemies into friends.